Waiting on that heifer, Julio.
Live.
Okay.
All the way live.
You're cool. And blank you, I'm out. Sorry, Joe. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Sunday's action now recapped here on the Audible with Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. It is the footballguys.com podcast. Cardinals 30, Jets 10. Bloom, it sounds about right. Let's talk about how the Cardinals got there. And it was a little bit of everybody. It was like a full team effort. Now, lots of DeAndre Hopkins, of course. And you might have gone into that game in the fourth quarter with DeAndre Hopkins being like, it's not doing a whole lot. And then he finishes with 6 for 131 and a touchdown off 2 catches on the left sideline in the same drive. So 6 for 131 and a touch. You're going to take that all day. Kyler Murray, 27 to 37, 380 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, as you see him continuing to work on his passing. Christian Kirk, 5 for 78. Chase Edmonds gets a rushing touchdown, 3 for 38 and a touch, and then 5 for 56 as a receiver. You saw Kenyon Drake get 18 for 60 and a touchdown, also a catch for 2 yards. That does count. And then Kyler Murray himself had a rushing touchdown, which we cannot forget to benefit his rather large fantasy day for this rather large win by the Cardinals.
A good win for the Cards. You want to beat bad teams soundly. They have a winning record. I don't know if they're a good team. This win doesn't make me think any more certain that they are a good team. Costly win. They lose Chandler Jones to a biceps injury, and those are usually season-ending. Cliff Kingsbury has left it open, and probably that's going to be it for their best pass rusher. Early on, it was Christian Kirk. As you said, DeAndre Hopkins finishes up with a big game. Kyler Murray, look at his stat line. I can't say that he showed me that he progressed as a passer that much in this game. I think it was more the Jets' ineptitude. That being said, you can see his arm talent. You can see his ability to stretch the field with that talent at the end of those passes. You see the easy rushing touchdown for him. That one came after a free play to Andy Isabella. Chase Edmonds. See, so we've been following this since before the season, as you pointed out, when Kingsbury said he's good enough to be a starter in this league. He may be the starter for this team sooner than later. Drake gets a touchdown, but Edmonds had the long run for a touchdown. Again, Edmonds getting all the involvement in the passing game. Edmonds more valuable. Even with Drake being the lead back, even with Drake getting the short touchdown, Edmonds is more valuable. What's going to happen when Edmonds gets more of this backfield work? Because if they're seeing what we're seeing, Edmonds should get more work here. Otherwise, this team, I don't know. And next week they're going to play Dallas on Monday night, which should be wildly entertaining, Cecil. Wildly entertaining. But, if they can win a shootout, does that mean they're a good team? I still don't know. That's going to be a theme this week. Do we know which teams are actually good in the NFL? Because there aren't many. I know which teams are bad. I know what team's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Jets.
Jets. Can you get a first-round pick for Sam Darnold?
No.
Okay. Why is Adam Gase still? Anyway, let's talk about what was good for the Jets. Return to Le'Veon Bell, right? 13 to 60 in this game on the ground. Also a catch for 7 yards. Okay. Matt had him in as a last-minute flex or desperation flex play, what have you. You're getting louder with Crowder. Of course, 8 for 116 and a touchdown there off of Joe Flacco. But there's really not much else to talk about. Consider Chris Herndon can't catch. There's really not a lot to say here about the Jets other than they suck. And Crowder's pretty good.
Yeah, it's terrible. I feel sorry for everybody, Chase Stewart at the company, rooting for this team, having your heart attached to this team at all. It's been a rough few years, but this is a team that it's time to burn it all down. And with Sam Darnold, I guess, do you recoup a draft pick for him if it's not a first round pick? Certainly the new coach is going to want to pick their quarterback. Jamison Crowder. Let's just celebrate Jamison Crowder.
Right.
In point per reception leagues, he has to be in the top 10 on a points per game basis. And whoever the quarterback, whatever the opponent, we'll keep him in our lineup. By the way, it's the Chargers next week for the Jets. Le'Veon Bell looks good. He doesn't look like he has the early career burst, but he has a lot of fight in his runs. And I guess maybe it's Frank Gore rubbing off on him a little bit. Not that he wasn't a player like that before, but you just wonder, you really do wonder from a psychological standpoint how these Jets suit up every week and bring it. Because there's not a lot of margin of error in the NFL. Chris Herndon, like you said, a terrible drop on one that easily could have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's not just the Jets. It's Herndon. They're made for each other in a way. And again, Crowder had that big catch and run and then extended for the score. And there we have it. We just know that offenses are going to get right against the Jets. If they don't, that's a problem. We're going to play Jamison Crowder, maybe Le'Veon Bell. The other thing is with Bell, why isn't he more involved as a receiver? I have no idea. He should be getting targets over Jeff Smith and Chris Hogan. He should be getting wide receiver snaps over Jeff Smith and Chris Hogan, right? He should be running routes, like 20 or 30 routes a game, not from the running back position. But it's Adam Gase. So we'll see how long this nightmare will go on. We're definitely on the watch for the next head to be lopped off. It could be Gase. A few other guys we'll talk about today, too.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, one of those. Yeah. Also, watch on that Crowder touchdown, Bloom, because he's reaching out, the ball goes in, offensive line picks it up. Like, no one comes over to celebrate. Now, of course, you're getting your ass kicked. So, I don't need everyone to selfie it up in the end zone, but it's like you just kind of feel that team's disconnected.
Yeah.
And certainly a change of head coach would help that. I'm glad Joe Burrow didn't get his helmet disconnected from his body in this game. 27-3 Ravens over the Bengals. Not a shocker there. But man alive. And, we like a little office gossip from time to time, Bloom. When Patrick Queen and Joe Burrow, it comes out like they didn't really like each other at LSU. Both first-round picks, obviously Burrow number 1 overall, and Queen, Ravens moving to get their speedy linebacker. It was interesting to note the type of day that Patrick Queen had. Chase Claypool's day was better. But Queen harassing Joe Burrow, hitting him, knocking him around. Joe Burrow gets picked off, 183 on this game. Joe Mixon, 59 hard-fought yards, 24 carries for 59 yards. T. Higgins, 4 for 62, as Tyler Boyd, 4 for 42. Joe Mixon, 6 for 35. So you had him in a PPR league. Those 6 catches certainly do help that day. But this was a rough one for Cincinnati.
Yeah. There are games, Cecil, that we see as yardsticks for where teams are with respect to each other in a division. We'll talk about another one of those that went not the way everyone expected today in among the early games, but this one did go the way folks expected. And you look at Cincinnati, and last week, Cease, you get Joe Burrow, first win as a Bengal, first home win as a Bengal. Woo! It was just a dream. Now we're back to reality. He woke up from that dream. Ask Deshaun Watson about that, falling asleep and waking up and facing the Jags defense is a good place to be. But waking up and facing the Ravens defense, no. And you just saw... Patrick Queen forced a couple of fumbles, one from Burrow and one from Mike Thomas that he took back for a touchdown. And you saw Joe Burrow getting hit a lot. Where Andy Dalton, who, by the way, is making, like $7 million to hold a clipboard right now, Andy Dalton is smiling. He's just saying, see? It was hard what I had to do. It wasn't just me, because he isn't exactly thought of in fond terms. A.J. Green... Oh, man. This is how the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. T.S. Eliot. He leaves the game with a hamstring injury, but it's just sad. We are at that point with A.J. Green. Now you have permission to drop him. Do we even have to put him in shut him down, Cease?
Right.
I mean, you're shutting him down.
It was one of those secret shut him downs, where you weren't bragging about it. You know what I mean? You're just shh, I feel bad.
Yeah, because we're not dancing on his grave or anything like that. Let's just remember him from 4 years ago. There was 1 year after the first big leg injury that he did look great before that season was ended by a leg injury. And it's just sad because you feel like you never got to see what A.J. Green could do in big-time playoff football. You never got to see what A.J. Green could do at a level with a team and organization around him to match his highest level of play. At least you look at this. Look, Mixon last week obviously helped teams win almost single-handedly. At least this week he got the 6 receptions in garbage time. He got enough touches where you see that he remains a centerpiece of the offense even in futile efforts. That's good. Higgins and Boyd, okay, hey, in PPR leagues, 8, 10-point games for total floor games. That's a sign that these are viable weekly plays, and you'll absorb that. So there's still something there as long as Burrow stays healthy. That's the thing. Because next week, Cease, Indianapolis. So run for your life. Hide, Joe. Hide. Run, Joe, run.
Run, Joe, run. Oh boy, Ravens side of things. Lamar Jackson, kind of like the Kyler Murray department, right? Bloom,
Yeah.
like, well, he's developing as a passer still, and he's a
Right.
better passer than some would ever given him credit for. But 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. The 2 touchdowns, Marquise Brown, 6 for 77 and a touch. Mark Mandrew, 6 for 56 and a touch. And you thought in this game, okay, it's going to be an easy win. Maybe we'll see more J.K. Dobbins. Nope, 1 for 34 on the ground. 3 for 21 as a receiver. Coolish. Devin Duvernay is fast. He's got that speed. 1 for 42 on the ground and 2 for 17 as a receiver. And then Gus Edwards, 7 for 25. Mark Ingram, 11 for 57. So this is a 3-headed headache, even in an easy win. And you think maybe they'll just go to the kid and feed him the rock. Nope. Never formulated.
Yeah, and this really could be similar, sees the parallels to Ray Rice's rookie year, when it was LaRon McClain and Willis McGahee.
Mm-hmm.
He was working them in. It's too bad because you see that Dobbins has the most juice by far of anyone in this backfield. And once again, you have a Ravens game where it's just too easy for them. So they don't really have to exert themselves on the offensive side of the ball. As you said, Cecil, Lamar Jackson, there's room for improvement as a passer. He's not putting up the big rushing numbers because he didn't need to. Why put him in harm's way for this one? So he's been a big disappointment, a huge disappointment. One of the biggest disappointments of any of the top 25, 30 picks in most drafts. We could certainly see that come back to the norm with a whiplash quickness if in matchups like Philadelphia next week, for instance, he is pushed out of his comfort zone, although we'll see about that with this Ravens defense playing really well. At least you get an Andrews score. And once again, if you just watch Lamar Jackson throwing to Mark Andrews, he looks flawless. The timing, the ball placement, the way that he's in sync with the play design is terrific. You did see an easy touchdown, a design touchdown to wide open Marquise Brown in the front of the end zone. He's still showing some juice as a runner. So this is going to stick around, right? Because Devin Duvernay had a big end around run, but he's going to be sprinkled in. This is how this offense is going to be. They're not going to run enough plays unless another team pushes them for these guys, except for Brown and Andrews. And, of course, Lamar Jackson, you ride out the waves here. That's just how this offense is going to be. And, see, we've watched Baltimore. I think they're playing for them like B- football. They lump on the Bengals and the Browns. The Chiefs beat them pretty easily. I don't see. I'm very interested to see what Ravens Steelers is going to look like, and I'm just very interested to see what the Ravens are going to look like against any team that is in their vicinity as a quality team, because they're not as good as they looked in this game. I think the Bengals are as bad as they looked. And I just wish that Philadelphia was coming in without so many injuries next week to test those Ravens.
And Baltimore, just peak at the right time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you're
That's
kind
true.
of
Horse race.
Yeah, you're just faltering now. Just peak at the right time, and and we hate this. We hate it, but they always get up for Pittsburgh.
Well, sure.
They always get up. The Steelers bring it out of you, and the Steelers let you hang around like they did with the Eagles today, 38-29, the final score. But the Steelers, the 4-0 for the first time since you and I were toddlers.
Mm-hmm. Been a while.
We're old. But 1979. 1979 was the last time the Steelers were 4-0. So here we go. Let's talk about the mad charge that the Eagles made. Because what was this? Like 31-14. 14. Okay, 31-14. And the Eagles make a comeback. Carson Wentz, couple picks, couple of touchdowns, 258 yards. When he's well protected, it doesn't happen often, Bloom. He can still throw a beautiful pass. Beautiful passes out there. Travis Fulgham, 10 for 152 and a touch. And how do you leave him wide open on that touchdown? Oh, well. Greg Ward, 4 for 26 and a touch. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, 1 for 37. That was it. Miles Sanders, big 74-yarder, but only 80 yards on the day. So 11 for 80 and 2 touchdowns. Hey, you're happy with that. Couple catches, 19 yards as well. Not much else from anyone else, including Zach Ertz, 1 for 6. Although I think there was one close to the end zone, right, on those 6 targets. So, you expected a larger day there. So the Steelers come out on top, and the Eagles make it a little close.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Travis Fulgham to start this one off, Cease. Because Mike Kay is one of my favorite beat writers wrote a story about him that he was actually, it was at his SAT prep course. The football coach was actually the SAT prep course instructor and said, because Fulgham was a basketball player, like, hey, you want to try football? He said, okay. It was on a whim. He was all state. And then he wasn't really on the radar. Old Dominion gave him a chance as a walk-on. He was a walk-on at Old Dominion, and he got his scholarship very quickly. And then you might remember him having a good Senior Bowl. And it was a big game against Virginia Tech, actually, that really put him on the radar. And this is another one, Cease, that Lions fans have to be thinking, okay, why did we draft this guy in the 6th round?
Right.
And then let him go? Because he can play. And we'll talk about this on the waiver wire show in a couple of days. If you're telling me the only obstacle between Fulgham keeping this kind of value, I mean, okay, not like massive game, this value, but at least rosterable fantasy value is Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson staying healthy. Hey, give me some Travis Fulgham. And the thing is, and see, this is the guy he was at Old Dominion. It's not going to separate, but he's going to make the catch. He's going to win at the catch point. And it's the Steelers defense. If the Steelers aren't getting home, how many times do we have to say it, Cease, right? I remember even as a kid growing up watching the Steelers, 3rd and 13 would make you so nervous because if the pass rush doesn't get home, someone's running free. And Carson Wentz was able to hang in. It was actually Lane Johnson getting hurt. And we'll see, again, Baltimore, Philly next week. When Lane Johnson went out, that's whenever everything bogged down for this Eagles offense. The Steelers defense was terrible in this game. It was a bad performance. It was a classic Steelers playing down to the level of their opponent. And when I say that, I don't want to say anything too disparaging about the Eagles because they do look like the best team in their division. I mean, what you saw from this team was that heart of a champion, and there are lots of players on this roster with rings, that isn't going to give up. But, I mean, at a certain point, you just get outgunned on offense and on defense here. But Travis Fulgham is a fun story. We'll talk more about him on the waiver wire. And he's just winning. And look, is not Carson Wentz the perfect quarterback for a guy who doesn't separate but wins at the catch point? Wentz is not going to be a timing, rhythm-based, separation-based quarterback. He's going to throw to guys that make plays for him. Guess who's not making plays for him? Zach Ertz.
Ooh.
Whew. I mean, again, we should be watching this, and I really feel like I dropped the ball not making a bigger deal out of this. When the stuff came out before the season started that he wanted an extension and the Eagles wouldn't meet his demands, the Eagles were telling us where they thought he was at in his career. Probably out of respect, they're not going to release him. I don't know how much he's making this year. I think maybe they
and 2 years left on his deal. I talked to his agent or someone that works for his agency on the air before when that was happening in August. Yeah. So it's kind of a message when Kittle's getting paid, Kelsey's getting paid, and that next guy up doesn't get paid.
Yeah, and he's not going to be getting paid. Well, he'll get a 1 year, $3 million, like the Jimmy Graham career plan. I mean, actually, Graham got $10 million a year from Green Bay and $8 million from Chicago. So maybe there's more there for Ertz. But we're like in Dallas Goedert when he gets back, as Ertz just has nothing to offer this offense. Miles Sanders. See, we talk about it every week, and you wonder if the coaches for the Eagles listen, because you just run a nice simple draw play, goes for 74-yard touchdown. That was basically all of Miles Sanders' production on the ground. He should have been more involved as a receiver. That's something they're not doing enough of. But you see, and Sanders just has so much juice. His feet are so light. He's got such a tremendous burst. He still can be a superstar in the NFL. The surroundings he has right now are not conducive to hitting any sort of ceiling or overachieving. But if he overachieves the talent level he has, Pittsburgh guy back at home, with that 74-yard touchdown. But again, these draw plays, screen passes against these aggressive defenses can yield those big plays. Also, Arcega White. Gotta say something good about Arcega Whiteside, since Travis Fulgham basically stole
his blocking. His
blocking, yeah, he was blocking. He and Greg Ward, who scored a touchdown, blocking on that one downfield. So, Philly is 1-3-1, Cease, and they're clearly the best team in their division. I think we're going to see a 6-win team. We might even see a 5-win team come out of that NFC East. No reason for the Eagles to hang their heads. And for the Steelers, they got it together in time, again, with that help from the Lane Johnson injury.
Yeah, and okay. And there was that one play, I think it was Tuitt that got the sack late,
Yeah.
where Wentz pumped, and then
Yep.
he was like stepping up to make a big throw, and Tuitt got him. But I was like, that was going to be ugly if Wentz got that one away. Anyway, let's talk about Big Ben on the other side, and it goes for 3 touchdowns, 239 yards. It's all about Chase Claypool. Get through everybody else. Stop throwing to Eric Ebron, 543. Juju, 4 for 28, including a beautiful sideline. What was that on the sideline? Like one catch, handed, 2 feet. I don't know. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. Just not much of a fantasy day there. James Conner. I love the Pittsburgh Stronger Than Cancer shirts, Bloom. I got to order one of those. James Conner, 1544, 1 touchdown. But this day is all about Chase Claypool. If he's out there, and he may be, because, he picks on Michael Ojemudia, you pick him up, maybe you dropped him, what have you. He may be out there. I'll have to check the availability in ESPN leagues, but Chase Claypool with a rushing touchdown, with 3 receiving touchdowns, 7 for 110 and 3. And this is a team, gone are the days of Troy Edwards and Lima Swede. This is a team, when they take a wide receiver, you take note, because that guy can play. And we saw it. And his game is still very raw. This is like DK Metcalf year 1, Bloom. Where it's like he's big and fast and physical, but he's not a route runner yet. Wait till he takes that step like DK's made this year. Huge day for Claypool.
Yeah, and let's give it up for Ike Hilliard. Ike Hilliard, Steelers wide receiver coach. Coach him up. So happy to be wrong. So very happy to be wrong. He's an outside receiver. He's an outside receiver, and one that is a handful. And like you said, Cece, he just looks physically dominant. He looks like the kind of player. He looks like Mike Evans, basically. Fair?
Yeah.
I
very
mean,
fair.
If you airbrushed in, whatever, digital effects in, Mike Evans' uniform on Claypool today, you wouldn't even have blinked. That's the kind of physical specimen that he looks like. And obviously, the Steelers organization has him ready to play. And like you said, this is the future. The future is the present. I guess we should mention Sammy Coates and Marcus Wheaton, because I actually like both of those guys. So they do miss. But these last 4 picks, even James Washington is good. James Washington
is really good.
But he just can't show out when it's these guys. Although Juju Smith-Schuster almost certainly is going to leave in free agency unless he takes such a sweetheart deal from the Steelers.
And Deontay Johnson gets the ankle today again?
Right, he's hurt. So, for Deontay Johnson, I mean, on one hand, I think that you do see Chase Claypool become like the favorite child.
Yes.
After this game. But Deontay Johnson can still maintain some value long term. This year it might be crowded. You can't put Claypool back in the bottom. He actually had his best play of the game was nullified by a offensive pass interference call that was not a good call.
No.
That was where he really showed his dominance. So this was it seemed, quiet at first, but even before Deontay Johnson got hurt, I think he had a little jet sweep touchdown. You saw Chase Claypool doing some things, and then you could just feel it turn into his day, and he may go the rest of his career and not have it. I think Harlan Hill, and I can't remember the other name, another old school throwback name, to have 4 touchdowns as a rookie. James Conner had a score, still not the most effective runner, still seeing Benny Snell getting mixed in at the goal line, but as long as the team is successful, Conner's going to be good. Ebron is just brutal. It was really fun, Cece. I mean, I suppose it's a good thing that people think of us when they watch Ebron mess plays up, because that's the thing. The moment he was signed, I thought, oh man, there's going to be a game. Ball's going to go to him with the game on the line. It didn't happen this time because, one time he fumbled, another time it looked like it might have been an interception, but the ball hit the ground, but it still was one that he let go. And yeah, that's going to be Ebron, even though he had this okay fantasy result. Juju, with Ben Roethlisberger, there's going to be some throws he wants back, but he's reasonably productive. Juju Smith-Schuster, you have to wonder, though, you're still going to keep him in the lineup. But obviously, there are more dynamic guys out there than him right now. And they have this little fascination with Ray McLeod. The Clemson wide receiver list, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. His speed was mixed in. Maybe some of the stuff they were looking to do with Ryan Switzer. Ben's looking good enough. See, they're 4-0. This is an ideal Steelers fan moment, right? Oh, they're 4-0, but I just don't feel good about how they're playing on either. It's true. Cleveland's coming next week. Be ready, because this Cleveland team is not the same one that got thumped by Baltimore in week 1.
Oh, Cleveland could beat them. I could easily see that happening. So, Yeah, I almost started out the Steelers take that way, Bloom. It was like
Yeah.
they're 4-0, and I don't feel really good. By the way, the last Steeler with 3 receiving touchdowns in his rookie season in a single game was
Lou Lips?
Eric Green.
Oh.
1990 against the Broncos. So
Yeah, they got Eric
anytime I
Green.
can bring up the 90s, you know.
And if you bring up Eric Green, I'm going to bring up that the Steelers traded down with the Cowboys in that draft and let the Cowboys get Emmitt Smith.
There we go. Jaguars and Texans up next. And Texans, you woke up and you didn't have Bill O'Brien as your coach. You had the oldest head coach in NFL history now, even though he's interim in Romeo. This is what, 73 years young. But you get that win, first win of the season, 30-14, the final score. Gardner Minshew, you see the limitations with Gardner. You see the scrappiness, but you also see towards the end of the game when he's trying to get Keelan Cole involved. You know, he's throwing it out there for Cole, and it's just falling short. You see the frustrations coming from his receiver. 6 targets for Cole, only 2 catches, 25 yards, 1 touchdown. Colin Johnson, 3 for 30 and a touch. Visca, 7 for 79. Chris Conley, 2 for 58. Chris Thompson, 3 for 35. James Robinson, 13 of 48. Stop trying to throw the ball, James. That was awful. James also had 5 for 22 as a receiver, and then he was gonna throw and then didn't, and then fumbled, and then no more trick plays with James Robinson. Just feed him the rock as much as you can. When you can. You got to think this was 10-7 at halftime.
Yeah.
So it's not like they had to go away from James Robinson. They just, 49 passing attempts for Gardner Minshew with those limitations he has as a quarterback, like 301 and 2 touchdowns, whatever, but just watch him play. And you can tell, like, he's not a starter. He's a nice, scrappy backup with a mustache and a story and a mullet and Uncle Rico, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he's not a starting level quarterback, though. So you saw one on the other side. We'll get to him in a little bit.
Yeah, Minshew put up the numbers, and this may be the kind of season it is. The numbers are there, but the wins aren't there, and the offense isn't really organizing around him in a way that makes you think that he's elevating them. That being said, DJ Chark went out with an ankle in this one. So, again, when Chark goes out, things get rougher, but that was later in the game. You saw James Robinson running hard at the beginning of this game, and he's for real. I mean, he runs with such great mass, like guys bounce off of him. See, even though we fun on Chris Berman, he's in our consciousness, right? Because watching Robinson run, push, just guys bouncing off of him, and so efficient in that Frank Gore kind of way. Zero wasted energy from James Robinson, but they went away from him. They went away from him against a defense that's been one of the worst run defenses in the league. So you got to question that. Maybe Jay Gruden, you have to wonder what he's doing there. That 4th down play in the red zone was just ugly. It's James Robinson. You put the ball in his hands and you run him downhill. Don't make him do anything else. I mean, let him catch the ball and go downhill. But don't put the ball in his hands and have him pretend he's going to run and then try to pass. And it was bad. It was really bad. It was all these for sure. Speaking of throwbacks, Colin Johnson, hook 'em horns, got his first touchdown on this one. Minshew spreads the ball around. I mean, at least he understands all of his options on the plays. He's not getting zeroed in on anybody. Laviska Shenault did have a really good first half in this one, and if we are going to see Chark miss any time, that ups Shenault's ceiling and floor. And maybe Keelan Cole. Keelan Cole didn't do too much in this game. He did have a very skilled touchdown. The toe drag. It's great to see Keelan Cole continuing to up his stock going into a contract year, so maybe we would look at that. But it's Jacksonville. Jacksonville's one of the worst teams in the league. Next week, Detroit. Not maybe one of the worst teams, not a good team. Detroit and Jacksonville. And I'm sorry if you have to watch this game.
Yeah, I apologize in advance. You brought up Ike Hilliard a little bit earlier, Bloom.
Yeah.
I'll always bring up Keenan McCardell.
Sure.
Always, always, always. So that toe drag swag you see, that's Keenan in the day. Man alive, we're old. Although we weren't doing shows when Keenan was playing. We might have been doing. When did Keenan retire?
Very tail end.
Maybe like when he was with Washington or something. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's talk about the Texans. And oh my God, Brandon Cooks is happy. Deshaun Watson is happy. And we talked about the Jets and like the psychological impact, Bloom, right? Yeah. And you see it. Now, you didn't see it really till the fourth quarter because it was 13-7. You're like, okay, I was expecting a little bit more. And then you saw it. And Deshaun Watson, 359, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs in this one. And Brandon Cooks going nuts, 8 for 161 and a touch. Will Fuller, 4 for 58 and a touch. Darren Fells, they forgot to cover him. Whatever happened on that play. 2 for 57 and a touchdown. The big 44-yarder, of course. David Johnson, 17 for 96. Hell, even Duke Johnson got some involvement. Not much. By the way, David Johnson had a couple catches anyway. But mainly 6 for 47, by the way, Randall Cobb, PPR leagues, you're watching that. But mainly it's just the happiness that you saw from Cooks, from Watson, and from Texans fans who now don't have to worry about being winless.
No. And hey, again, Chargers did 0-4 to the playoffs. Maybe the Texans could. Jags defense isn't good to begin with. Remember, Joe Burrow and company had a nice afternoon against them. No Josh Allen, no Miles Jack. Oh, forget about it. It's going to be. We thought it was going to be easy. It eventually was easy. It took a little while for Deshaun Watson to get going. Minshew was actually probably the better quarterback in the first half, but Watson got a second half. And now, finally, we see Brandon Cooks. And we were debating whether he was droppable. I think he was a spite drop. See, what I call a spite drop is when you're just dropping someone because you're so angry at them. You know, you put him in your lineup, it gives you a 0. Now it gives you a lot better than a 0. And if he's out there in waiver wire, yeah, you might be. See, there should be a name. We need to make a name for whenever you drop somebody and then spend like half of your waiver wire budget to get them the next week. Remorse, for sure.
That's the 1-800-Flowers pickup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. Take me back, please. So long catch to open the game. A good day. And the score to put the game out of the reach. David Johnson finished okay. But it was. So, see, we look at some of these results. Cooks. And David Johnson and Watson, but it was Jacksonville. You know, Joe Mixon had 3 touchdowns against Jackson. Joe Burrow looked listed relatively against Jacksonville. So let's see what comes. Like you said, with the Fells, it was a busted coverage touchdown. Well, Fuller had a touchdown, but I think we can see that Watson isn't going to zero in on Fuller the way he did in the first week when they were struggling against Kansas City. Cobb getting some short catches here, helping to move the sticks. Duke Johnson barely involved. Houston going to Tennessee next week. And, well, there's a lot to unpack with Tennessee. Probably get to watch them on Tuesday. But, you know, one foot in front of the other, Cease. If they keep winning games against teams they're supposed to beat, like Jacksonville, it could get interesting with that extra 7th playoff spot.
Well, people think of us and being neurotic Steelers fans when Eric Ebron's out there dropping passes. But I thought of our pot stoner degenerate friend Jason up in Greeley watching Raiders, Chiefs, and the Raiders. There's your Chris Berman.
Yeah.
Come out on top 40-32. Kansas City with Mahomes does not lose many games in the AFC West. And this one, nice win. Nice sword. 40-32. Derek Carr, 347, 3 touchdowns, 1 INTs. Henry Ruggs, 2 for 118 and a touch. The big 72-yarder was fun to watch. Nelson Aguilar pulling away, spiking the ball, talking some smack. 2 for 67 and a touch. Darren Waller, somebody ought to cover him. 5 for 48 and a touchdown on the day. Hunter Renfrow with a big 42-yarder. It was his only catch of the day, but it was big as this team had to hold off the Kansas City Chiefs as they try to make that charge back late in this game. And you do that with lots of Josh Jacobs, 77 hard-fought yards, 23 for 77, by the way, 2 rushing touchdowns, a couple catches, 8 yards. Devontae freaking Booker, okay, 43 yards, which might be his career long, just top of my head, 7 for 62, kind of supplementing Jacobs there as well, catch for 5 yards. Zay Jones couldn't even pick up a first down on the one catch. Like, stop throwing to Zay Jones. But man alive, Raiders. Woo, we got a lot to get to in this one.
Yeah, I can't just picture it, Cease. John Gruden. I can't do any kind of Gruden impression. But you just feel that locker room after this game. Where Gruden's like, that's what I'm talking about, you know? This is what we're capable of. Buying into the program. And we saw it last week, even though Buffalo beat them pretty soundly, that Derek Carr was making some throws that were more reminiscent of that early part of his career when we thought, wow, how good can Derek Carr be? You add back in Henry Ruggs. And you can't stress this enough. It's not just the plays that Henry Ruggs makes. It's the speed threat that you have to account for. Because, see, now all of a sudden this Kansas City defense looks like the 2018 Kansas City defense. That you have hope, 40-32, right? I mean, you just hope that Mahomes can outscore the opponent. Because everything came easy, except the run. A lot of what Jacob Scott was later in the game. But from an offensive standpoint, the blueprint is really coming to life now because you have vertical passing. See, how many times have we said Derek Carr and vertical passing over the years?
Right.
But it's there. It's there. It's Aguilar. It's Ruggs. You've got Darren Waller, that sure-handed target to move the sticks. And you've got this running game and that indomitable spirit of Josh Jacobs. And what you really like about this win, Cease, other than, you're beating the king of the hill on the road, is that they never let Mahomes get the ball back. On 4th and 1, they could have punted. Casey had no more timeouts, They could have said, okay, let's just try to hang on for dear life, but they didn't. They ran it, and that was that. And now you see the elements of this offense. Ruggs makes such a difference. You see the elements of this offense. You see the defense. We'll talk a little more about it. Young, feisty, aggressive. Some of the signature players really making life not easy for Patrick Mahomes in this one. Like you said, Booker had the biggest run of his career. We're looking at him as now an injury hedge running back and a good offense because, like you said, Renfro was just a supporting cast piece but made a big play. Everybody pitched in. Even Zay Jones, hey, at least he caught the ball. He didn't get the first down. Carr even had a bad interception in this one. There was a point early in this game, Cease, when Carr throws that bad interception overthrowing Waller, couldn't quite step into the throw because of the pressure and thinking, oh, here we go. This one's going to get out of hand, just like the Raiders-Chiefs games last year. But this team said no, and they go into a bye. They get to rest. They get to recharge. They get to look ahead, feeling like they can beat anybody. And then you look at the AFC, Cease. I mean, is it Buffalo? Is it? I don't know. I mean, we really now have the stage set for some very interesting matchups going forward, and not just the sense that it's Baltimore, Kansas City, and everybody else in the AFC.
No, not that at all whatsoever. Kansas City. And by the way, Bloom, like when they had that lead, 2-score lead, and you're thinking, oh, there's way too much time. Even Scott Hansen on Red Zone was like, there's 14 minutes left. It's like, don't say that. But it was plenty of time, and Mahomes just couldn't quite get there. Okay, what am I going to talk about, Bloom? I'm going to talk about John Kitna and how the Bengals exposed the Steelers, and then Bill Belichick exposed them on the way to Super Bowl 36. Did Belichick show everyone, just rush 3?
Yeah.
Drop 8, rush 4, drop 7. Don't make me do any further math, Bloom, but okay. Did you get, not necessarily figured out, it's the Chiefs offense, and they still scored 32. But you look at Mahomes, 340, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, sacked 3 times, harassed a lot. Travis Kelce, 8 for 108 and a touch coming late, so you're a little nervous. Tyreek Hill, what was that? Was that a penalty on Kelce that took that beautiful early touchdown away from Tyreek Hill? It was like just a beautiful throw, like impossible window. He just dropped it in there, and I was like, oh, well, they'll get back to it, right? It's early. They took the touchdown away from Tyreek Hill. No, never got back to it, but 3 for 78 still on the day. McCole Hardman, 2 for 50. Sammy got a touchdown before he got hurt. Bloom, give us the latest there. Shocker. So then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 10 for 40 on the ground. Mahomes, by the way, rushing touchdown. Tyreek, rushing touchdown as well to help their fantasy days, to be sure. But Kansas City, and you can learn a lot from this. I don't have to talk about going undefeated and all that. Right. 72 Dolphins, let them toast, whatever. It's about learning from this. Kansas City can learn a lot from taking this one on the chops here in week 5.
Well, they should. I mean, they're going to have to face this Raiders teams again. And the teams in their division don't back down from them. The Chargers don't back down from them. Remember, we saw that game go to overtime. Imagine if they had not pulled that game out, what we'd be saying about them. The Broncos don't back down from them. The defense usually at least will get some hits on Mahomes. So for fantasy, the biggest story here, Watkins being hurt, hamstring, soft tissue injury, Sammy Watkins, if you heard this one before, did score in this one before he went out. But we're looking at DeMarcus Robinson. We're looking at McCole Hardman a little closer for that game. Monday night, by the way, Kansas City and Buffalo now moved to Monday night as they're accommodating the Tuesday Buffalo-Tennessee game. Kansas City, Buffalo. And don't toast yet Miami Dolphins 72 because Buffalo's still undefeated. So like you said, Hill lost a beautiful early touchdown to a penalty, still got to score on a rushing attempt, and Kelce had a big game. thing that I think if you're watching this game, that it's time for us to have we're going to talk about this. It's time for us to have a talk about this. I guess like what CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they've changed it cleverly to MEH.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to admit, he looks in an NFL way ordinary. He looks like an ordinary player on an NFL field. That first game, we saw that short area quickness, and you thought, wow, what are the possibilities in this offense with that short area quickness?
But that first game was against who?
It was against the Texans. Yeah, and the Texans.
What have we learned about them?
Yeah, and it's the Bill O'Brien Texans too. So you watch Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and one of the things that stands out, and I do think you're not going to see the touchdowns, the late breaking news, but you just see it when he has to have any sort of collision. He cannot push the guy that is tackling him. He just can't generate enough kinetic energy to win those collisions, which is so important. I wonder, Cecil, with DeAndre Washington getting called up from the practice squad this week, if we don't see DeAndre Washington in a Damian Williams kind of role in the red zone. And we're also just not seeing, you wonder if it's execution. I don't know. Damian Williams is not slow, but you're just not seeing the explosive plays. And in this game, I think you saw them where they were stubborn and kind of forcing the ball to Edwards-Helaire, kind of went away from him in this game. He wasn't a cornerstone of the offense in this one. So, not necessarily an automatic play. Probably you still have to play him because of how thin running back is, but he's certainly nowhere near the first round pick we were hoping for. And again, Kansas City and Buffalo next week should be, count on the NFL to somehow turn this chaos into something that's going to draw ratings and make the NFL the sport everybody's going to be talking about, because we were already excited about Mahomes and Allen. But now, we'll watch Buffalo on Tuesday night, likely. Still, nothing is in stone. It's 2020.
Right.
But now this is a staggered Kansas City team coming into that matchup. And again, everything's up for grabs. And Buffalo can really assert themselves as the team, if they can beat Tennessee and beat Kansas City back-to-back, the teams that were in the AFC title game last year, they can say, hey, for now at least, the road to the Super Bowl goes through Buffalo. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. Rams and Washington up next, 30-10 the final score. Not a shocker there. Jared Goff was dealing 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Gerald Everett is fun to watch. Big man shouldn't move like that. 4 for 90, cutting back against the grain, picking up extra yards. That was fun. Robert Woods, 4 for 71 in this contest. And then you saw Cooper Kupp, 5 for 66. Josh Reynolds, couple of catches, 46 yards. Tyler Higbee, 2 for 12. So again, you got your tight end by committee. You got your running back by committee. 15 for 38 and 1 rushing touchdown. Also rushing touchdown for Jared Goff, but 15 for 38 and a rushing touchdown for Darrell Henderson, and 3 for 30 and receiving touchdown for Darrell Henderson, who's very swift bloom, and then he hits whatever's stopping him, and then he just stops. It just, it's like, well, but he's very swift, very decisive. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could learn something from watching Darrell Henderson run. Mm-hmm. Cam Akers returned to the field, 9 for 61 to lead the way on the ground. Malcolm Brown, who should not bounce things outside, went 8 for 30 in this contest. So easy one for the Rams, a little pitch and catch from Goff and the boys, rushing the ball, and they got a pretty easy win in the drizzle.
Yeah, the only thing we can count on in this offense is playing Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Even Jared Goff, who we had pegged as a matchup play, and this was a good matchup, didn't come through last week in a good matchup against the Giants. Everything came easy, though. So, by the way, it is those Giants next week that get this Washington defense. They did get Chase Young back. Didn't make much of a difference. Everything worked. I mean, when Sean McVay has the right plays dialed up, Jared Goff and the Rams make offensive football look very easy when they're facing a vastly inferior opponent like they were. As you mentioned, Henderson ran hot early in this one, got a touchdown reception, showed that burst. But like you said, also not a lot of creativity. So you look at his overall productivity, and he's not doing anything to pull away. And you weren't going to put him in anyway because they liked Malcolm Brown better last week and Cam Akers was back this week. Akers plus Brown got more carries than Henderson. So you still have hesitation. Rams next week are playing San Francisco. I mean, we're going to say, make sure you get Darrell Henderson in your lineup. I don't know. Next week is going to be Akers, who had a nice run at the end of the game. Is it Akers with 15 carries and Henderson with 8? Next week is Akers getting the catches out of the backfield. I don't know. It's going to be frustrating. I do know that we may be shutting down Tyler Higbee. 3 touchdowns against Philly, that's great. And otherwise, he's kind of a lineup liability. Might be a sabotage drop, a classic Paul Charchian term there, where you're dropping somebody because he's going to clog up someone else's roster, and they might seem inclined to start him because it's Gerald Everett. He was a second-round pick. He was the first pick of this McVay regime as a weapon, as a passing game weapon. He's going to be a free agent next year. Probably not going to bring him back. We'll see who signs him, but you could see in this game, as you said, Cease, really in one of the clearest, I think he's had a couple of games like this in his career, where you can see, okay, that's why he was a second-round pick. And not in an Eric Ebron way where you see the physical traits, but there's just nothing to tie the game together, because he has that too. So, that's kind of the death knell for keeping Higbee as someone that you're going to consider starting when Everett is adding value to his touches like that. Cease, is this a good team? This is the theme, right? Is this a good team? They're 4-1, but the 4 are against the NFC East. So congratulations, LA Rams, NFC East champions.
Washington had Kyle Allen start. He got knocked out of the game, although he was cleared to return, and they just kept sticking with Alex Smith. I think we should all appreciate Alex Smith. We should all root for Alex Smith. Bloom, I don't want to see him playing football.
No.
It's one of those things. I just, every time he was like scrambling, and I'm like, I don't want your leg to fall apart, dude. Like, seriously. Dwayne Haskins with the stomach flu, so he didn't even show up to the stadium, whatever. Like, okay. Not much to talk about here. Kyle Allen rushing touchdown early. McLovin 3 for 26 though in this one, with Smith 37 yards passing, 74 yards passing, so 70 yards total passing for the team. Like, if you take out the sacks, which were plentiful, 8 sacks in this contest. Antonio Gibson 11 for 27, and then 5 for 24. So if you had him in as a flex play. But they're just not a lot here. The quarterback situation, doesn't help. And then the thing with Alex Smith, love the guy, appreciate that he fought back, but man, it's tough to watch him because you just get so nervous.
It is tough. It is, man. Cease, things are coming into my brain that almost make me sound insensitive. I think of like Make-A-Wish Foundation or something like that. Alex Smith got his wish to be back on the NFL field. Now let's go ahead and call this a W for a heartwarming story in 2020, because he's just not viable out there. And see, they showed his family in the crowd. They showed his wife, and you could feel her fear through your TV screen. Mm-hmm. And that is not just a overbearing wife who's worried about her husband the way she would be worried about him. She just knows what his physical capabilities are out there. He's not ever going to be remotely close to what he was before. So let's just, I understand you're not going anywhere with Kyle Allen either, but this offense did more with Kyle Allen out there. Kyle Allen looked pretty athletic on his touchdown run. And if you have Antonio Gibson, if you have Terry McLaurin, you're saying, please put Kyle Allen back out there. Don't think we're going to see Dwayne Haskins. We're more likely to see him traded than to see him start another game for Washington, I think. And, at this point, this is where Washington is. Logan Thomas, by the way, speaking about another story that was like, that was fun. Now we turn the page, Logan Thomas in fantasy football. And week C, they play the Giants next week, by the way, a big showdown, because at least one of those teams has a win. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, another one. I don't know what will happen. And it's going kind of the way we expected, right? I mean, the teams that are in the contention for the top quarterbacks next year, Jacksonville, the Jets, Washington. But there's one team that said, no. We're going to contend for a division title. We're going to be ahead of schedule because we already have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Let's wrap up part 1 of the Week 5 recap. And the Falcons have fired Dan Quinn, Bloom. Is that
it's been reported.
It's been reported by Athletic Reporter.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. So we kind of thought that. 23-16, final game we're going to recap here, part 1. We'll be back with part 2 after the afternoon games and before Sunday Night Football. 23-16, Teddy. Love watching Teddy. I love the sound of his cadence. I just love Teddy Bridgewater. 313, couple touchdowns, no picks in this one for Teddy. Robbie Anderson, 8 for 112. And speaking of speed that's used as a decoy, there's just some plays where they're going to clear out with Robbie and throw it underneath. DJ Moore, 4 for 93 and a touch. Mike Davis, 9 for 60 and a touch as a receiver. and then 16 for 89 on the ground. And that was about it for anyone that you would be considering starting as they roll in this one against the Falcons team that had a little bit of fight, like a little we'll get to. And Carolina's defense still awful, but Carolina just kept putting a squeeze on them.
It's Teddy. Teddy is leading this team. We expected Carolina to be down in the cellar with Jacksonville and the Jets and Washington, teams like that. They're not. They're tied for the division lead. And remember, one of those losses was to the Raiders. That doesn't look like a bad loss at all because it was also a loss in the fourth quarter where if Matt Rule just hadn't called a handoff to the fullback on fourth down with the game on the line.
With a huge cutback lane to the right, by the way. Did you see that?
Yeah.
When they
replayed
there. It? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the point is, the Panthers are no joke, and they're piecing this defense together as they go. They lost Dante Jackson in this one, but they're still, and Brian Burns got a concussion in this one. So that's the thing. You're seeing these players go down in this game. And yeah, Dan Quinn should be fired. Should have been fired last year. They pulled it together. It's Teddy, man. And Teddy put together a wonderful 2-minute drill at the end of the first half that really set the tone for the rest of the game. And teams taking on the personality of their coach and their quarterback. This is a team that just goes out and goes about their business and plays well. Plays well within their abilities, but executes. Mike Davis. And I can remember that I thought Mike Davis was going to have a chance to hold off David Montgomery. Like when the Bears were saying that, I believed it because Mike Davis is pretty good. And Mike Davis is showing how good he is. Mike Davis gets a lot of extra yards. Matt Waldman chronicling this on his Twitter feed, which is everything he puts out there is worth digesting. As a receiver, as a runner, as someone to finish the game. He's doing all of those things. See, how many teams out there would you take away their best offensive player and they actually go on a winning streak? Mike Davis, everybody. A little claim. And this is one of those things, right? When your team is ailing and lagging, but you have that good waiver priority, sometimes it's that move you make that allows you to get somebody that ends up helping you later on. Robbie Anderson. There's the Gase effect here. There's back with his coach. He's the number one. DJ Moore did put up a good result on a long catch and run touchdown. Some of that's on Atlanta, though. Atlanta's secondary is decimated. It wasn't Ian Thomas. I know some people were thinking Ian Thomas because Atlanta had been giving up big numbers to tight ends. That's not
right.
It. Atlanta's defense just isn't good. But you have this Carolina team. They're 3-2. Chicago's coming. The 4-1 Chicago Bears. I think that Carolina's probably a better team than them. I'm just happy, Cease, that we can talk about first place Teddy Bridgewater. And if you loved the Alex Smith story today, Teddy Bridgewater is everything the Alex Smith story is, plus his team's in first place, and he's balling out.
Love it. I thought you were going to sing Hurley Gurley, man. But they have to win. They have to win.
Yeah, well, it's just, it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. He almost looked like his old self on a wide open touchdown.
Yeah.
Right. So he still took advantage of wide open rushing lane for a big touchdown. 14 for 121 and a touchdown for Todd Gurley. 4 for 29 as a receiver. No Julio Jones. So Calvin Ridley goes nuts. 8 for 136. And Matt Ryan can still throw dimes, Bloom. I'll still be a Matt Ryan supporter because he's tough. He can throw dimes. He just has to have time. He doesn't have much time. Sacked a couple of times, harassed most of the day. 226 and a pick in this one. Russell Gage 2 for 16 if you had him in as a what the heck flex. Here we are with the Falcons now moving on from their head coach, Dan Quinn.
Yeah, without Julio Jones, you saw everything get tougher for this offense. Matt Ryan against this Carolina defense didn't do anything again, even after Dante Jackson goes out. And that probably helped Calvin Ridley still have a good game. Nobody else did anything. Olamide Zacchaeus, you learned his name long enough to put him in a DFS lineup and wonder why you did. Or Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst isn't going to be the Austin Hooper struggle target. Hayden Hurst isn't going to be any kind of security blanket. Gave up a second-round pick for him, and he's not really adding a lot to this offense. Todd Gurley was, and see, I guess it's just going to be Kenyon Drake. Every running back's going to have their best game of the year against Carolina, except Kenyon Drake. So, if you have Kenyon Drake, you're playing your little violin. At least he got you a touchdown for that. But it's Atlanta, and again, game of inches, right, Cease? Because they blew the game against Chicago. They blew the game against the Cowboys. if they just hadn't done that, Dan Quinn would probably still have a job, and maybe they would just be feeling entirely differently than they have these last 2 games where they got basically outclassed. And you also had a Matt Ryan red zone interception, a terrible red zone interception in those days. So that's the thing, right? Like, here's what I'll take out of this. If they hadn't, well, if Dan Quinn was coaching better, they wouldn't. So he's the reason that he has to be fired. I mean, these losses, this identity. But it's also Matt Ryan, man. I mean, Matt Ryan doesn't elevate a team. He doesn't elevate an offense. He doesn't have a counterpunch. He doesn't have something where, okay, at least you saw that from Carson Wentz today, right? I mean, Carson Wentz has more to overcome than Matt Ryan does. And Carson Wentz gives his team a sense of spark and fight, even when the circumstances are against them. Matt Ryan, where he did have that maybe earlier in his career at Boston College, you just don't see that. And Atlanta, Minnesota next week. See? So, I mean, I guess there's better games to watch than Jacksonville, Detroit. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out. And we will continue on with the recap once the afternoon games are done. So make sure to stay tuned for that show. Make sure to subscribe to the Audible, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, however you download your podcasts. We appreciate you guys for listening. We'll combine the two, make one nice, tight recap show for you. Since you're watching on YouTube, most of you, make sure to do all those YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund, I'm Cecil, we're the Audible. Everyone, stay tuned and stay frosty.